Hey everybody, Rob here. It's time for a couple of stories from the ProRevenge archives. First one, ex-girlfriend shafted me out of hundreds. I took her to court and reported her for tax fraud, leaving her liable for thousands. Let's jump right in. Last year I lived with my then girlfriend. This turned out to be a huge mistake. Soon after moving in, it became clear that she expected me to cover her rent from time to time. As she was between jobs, I let this slide, expecting to be paid back in due course. It was a similar story with household bills. While she paid her share to begin with, she eventually refused to contribute. I asked her if she could just open an overdraft with her bank till she got more work, which would have been free of charge, but she refused. Within the first few months of living together, she got quite behind on rent and bills. When she finally got a job, she began to catch up on arrears, but was always reluctant to pay. I thought she might be reluctant because it left her with little money, which would be fair enough, but things continued this way even after she got a better job. When she refused to pay rent one month, I explained that this wasn't fair and insisted that she pay up. After considerable outbursts, she paid, but not without making it clear that this wasn't what she wanted to do. During this argument, I was in a different town working, and a few days later, she let me know that she'd moved out and broken up with me. I was upset with the breakup, and further upset that she insisted she still didn't owe rent or bills, which left me in a dire financial position. To cut a long story short, she realized her mistake and came back a few weeks later, but with a renewed conviction that she didn't owe me anything because her returning was payment enough. The next few months consisted of her threatening to leave at multiple points for not supporting her enough, despite me buying most of our food, letting her pay late, and bringing her lunch every day. She even repeatedly threatened to kill me one night after coming home drunk. I thought this was especially rude, considering I'd stayed up late to make sure she got home safe. Other notable events were her and her mother having a deep discussion on how to leave me high and dry on rent. Her mother was a classy lady, and her getting verbally abusive that I wouldn't drop her name from the tenancy agreement. Must have thought I was stupid. Needless to say, the relationship wasn't meant to be and didn't last into the new year. Ex-girlfriend ended it. She eventually moved home, but agreed to meet her obligations and pay her remaining half of the rent. Sometime after this had boiled over, I met a fantastic girl and we eventually got together. Happy days, I thought. Not quite. Ex-girlfriend discovered I had met someone else and absolutely lost her shit, calling me all names under the sun, calling me out for betrayal, etc. She didn't consider that breaking up with someone might make them not want you anymore. Incensed, ex-girlfriend stopped paying. At the time, I hadn't been keeping track and thought she owed me around £300. After she calmed down, she agreed to pay. A few days passed with no payment when I got a message from her mother claiming everything was paid and to stop asking her daughter for monies already paid to you. She went on to say that any further requests for money would be treated as harassment. At this point, I was irritated by the entitlement and rudeness of the pair, and went back through my bank statements to check exactly how behind on payments she was. It turned out that the shortfall was more than double what I initially thought. So, I prepared a formal letter of demand for payment and posted it to ex-girlfriend's address. Several days later, I got a call from the police saying that a harassment report had been made against me. I explained the situation, and the police confirmed that no harassment was made. I was surprised that my ex-girlfriend would waste police time to try to get out of paying the debt and decided to take ProRevenge to obtain justice. I discovered that for the entire period of our tenancy, ex-girlfriend hadn't been paying council tax. Essentially, she hadn't told the council she lived there. I took it upon myself to inform the council that there was a second person living at the property avoiding tax. They were appreciative of this information and further appreciated me furnishing them with an up-to-date home address for tax dodger ex-girlfriend. In parallel, I took ex-girlfriend to court over the unpaid rent and bills using the tenancy agreement we signed and got the majority of it back. I like the comments for this story, especially the one that says, "Can we also take a minute to point out what a terrible mom that lady is? If I had a kid and found out they were just refusing to pay a debt like that, I wouldn't encourage it, and I sure as hell wouldn't be rude to the person they owed money to." On to our next story. Try and force workers into dangerous and life-threatening situations. This will backfire in ways you couldn't imagine. Let's jump right in. This story is about how I resigned from my warehouse job once and for all. The company I used to work for implemented a new way of paying management commissions and bonuses. It was a money saved, money paid type thing. Every little thing had a bonus attached to it. This month you saved on stationery? Here's $100. Don't spend any money to repair the store in any way? Here's $500. Normally, this wouldn't affect us, but there were a few categories that were outright dangerous and unfortunately had the biggest bonuses attached to them. It started with the manager and area manager wanting us to change light panelings in the store. There were a few problems with this. The lights were so old that the wiring was faulty and unpredictable. The way the lights were rigged would require you to have training as an electrician to remove the panels and replace the bulbs. Management was hoping that we would undertake the work, saving costs on hiring a professional electrician and thus receiving a hefty bonus. I outright refused, but a few of my offsiders were roped into it. After one particular incident of a worker receiving a mild shock, we all banded together and said, "No effing way." A week later, we were emailed a link to a new online training course. The main theme: warehouse employees were to undertake various maintenance tasks, and the main one, changing lights, light panels, etc. If we didn't complete this training, then we would be unsuitable employees, not meet our hiring requirements, and could possibly be terminated. I set about taking screenshots of everything, including the mandatory tests. It became evident very quickly that I was one of the only employees who had refused to complete the training and was confronted by the area manager, who said I have a week to complete the training or I'd be written up with an official warning, and, because of the severity of the warning, could face disciplinary action and possible immediate termination. Now, what management didn't count on was anyone sharing this information with outsiders. I put together a nice packet with all the new tests and training that would force warehouse employees to do dangerous tasks, but also copies of the new management bonus structure where it explicitly had categories that detailed if employees could do in-store repairs and save the company money, they'd receive a hefty bonus. There was even an award for most money saved. I also made sure to include the copious amounts of emails and texts showing that management was violating a lot of health and safety guidelines, especially with the lack of warehouse staff to safely unload and load trucks and shipping containers. And one of the worst things I found was around page 36 of our contracts, which stated that we weren't officially covered to unload transfers and trucks, that the company would hire professional contractors to unload, and it was up to us to take over once goods were safely unloaded. Why? Because the company didn't want to cover us medically if we injured ourselves unloading, and oversight on all our behalves, but shocking nonetheless. I checked in with my best friend, a lawyer, who helped me navigate any non-disclosure issues and who pointed me in the right direction with sending off this information. Once I had sent everything off, everything went back to normal for a while. Management kept pressuring me into signing off on undertaking dangerous tasks to make their bonuses, and I refused. It all came to a head when the area manager essentially said, "You don't sign off on this next shift, I'll fire you on the spot." No matter how much I pleaded my case, the area manager tried to spin it as a new company-wide initiative and that we should take pride in our workplace. What a load of shit. I struggled with this a lot and didn't know what to expect when I got off the bus and made my way to the store the next morning. When I walked in ready for my next shift, the store was essentially deserted. I opened the warehouse, checked the transfer sheets, and then grabbed my water bottle and headed into the store to fill it up. As I was standing by the water filter, the customer service manager came downstairs with this cheeky smile on his face. Apparently, the manager was under close review and was currently in mediation, having to answer for all the bullshit corners she had cut to make her bonuses. The best bit, the area manager and general manager were both fired. Apparently, they were given the choice to resign without any payouts or benefits, or the shareholders and CEO of the company would begin an investigation into these practices. I couldn't believe it. A few hours later, the CEO and CFO arrived and tried to offer me a bonus for speaking up, a formal apology, and a raise if I was to drop the case. I just grabbed my bag and resigned right there on the spot. No way was I dropping anything. I walked out of there with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that they'd be investigated and hopefully taken to task on what they'd tried to force us to do. From what I saw online and on the company's website, it took a long time for the company to recover. Even to this day, you can see the company has been bought, changed hands over and over. Millions lost, bad publicity, public trust and employee trust gone, all to save a few bucks and reward greedy management. I'm very glad OP stood his ground in this story. I knew a convenience store owner who worked on his own sign outside of his building, was electrocuted, thrown off the ladder, and is no longer with us. Electricity is not something you mess around with if you don't know what you're doing. On to our last story, how I screwed my stepmom over the moment I had the legal option to do so. Let's jump right in. Backstory. When I was about 9 to 10, my parents got a separation. Later, a divorce, where my dad forced my mom to sell my childhood home. And my mom got main custody, with my dad having us. They had me and my 4 years younger sister over every other weekend plus every other holiday. He moved out only to immediately move in with the stepmonster and her 3 kids. The youngest was 2 years younger than me and a boy, the middle a year older than me and female, and I'm not sure about the oldest age, but she was also female. I never interacted much with her. On an ideal world, us 4 kids would have gotten along great, played together and whatnot, or at least ignored the existence of the others. Sadly, it's not an ideal world, and that didn't happen. My sister got along with them just fine. I didn't. Maybe it was my then still undiagnosed Asperger's syndrome. Maybe it was me not instantly going, yay, new family, but the step siblings didn't like me. They started bullying me, and my little sister joined in because she adored her new step family and she was just 7 at the time. Over the first 6 months, the bullying got worse and worse until I broke and tried to call home and get picked up, at which point my dad decided to start confiscating my phone as the first thing he did when picking us up. The bullying escalated even more. There was nothing I could do. The step monster defended her precious demon spawn, calling me a liar and saying things like, my kid said they didn't, whatever they did or said to hurt me that day, or she's just lying for attention. During the next year, I would try to run away from my dad's place a few more times to go to family. They lived less than a 40-minute walk away from an aunt and about 1.5 hours from my grandparents. Then, my dad and the step monster moved over 2 hours by car away from where my mom lived. Things got so bad that I dreaded going to see my dad. Sitting at every dinner, the only time I would see my dad at that point between pickup and drop off, listening to my dad calling my mom a fat greedy pig and other evil things hurt. At 12 to 13, I was suicidal and numb, since I would only see the step monster mostly when she told me to get the heck out and play or something. Just get out of the house. I tried telling her that I wanted to die, that I didn't want to keep living like this anymore. Her response, I don't care, get the f*** outside already. If you're going to kill yourself, do it outside. Not long after that, I had a meltdown at school, crying for hours and unleashing the whole nasty tale onto them. Since my school was a good one, the teacher contacted CPS, who talked with me, ran some tests, and sent me to a psychologist. At some point, they contacted my dad with their concerns for my mental and emotional well-being. My dad dealt with it by calling me, saying, since you feel the need to lie like that, you shouldn't come visit anymore. Stay with your mom, I don't care. That was my last conversation with him. although I heard a lot about him and the stepmonster from my sister. Now for my revenge. 10 years or so later, I get a phone call from my dad's sister about him passing, car accident, and funeral. I went and I met the stepmonster again, obviously widowed now, and my half-brother for the first time. During the funeral and following wake, she proceeds to insult me, my mom, and the rest of Dad's family. Then, she starts complaining about how his name is on everything they had together, and how is she going to keep the house? It was paid down, but taxes and whatnot. Now, she never worked a day in her life, and such thing. Which is where my revenge comes to play. See, in my country, the children of the deceased have a right to claim a minimum of $115,000 each, if there is that much money or value in goods left behind, and there is no will stating otherwise. Normally, this claim comes after the deceased spouse also dies or when they try to sell the property worth the money, whichever comes first. Normally. See, legally the children can claim it any time, they just don't 'cause decency and pity for the widow. Too bad I hate her guts and both the youngest step-siblings. As it so happens, my dad and the stepmonster own some award-winning show dogs, the house and land and a car. The stepmonster also got some insurance money, plus she will get a sum of about 60% of what my dad would earn if he was still alive every month. If my dad had a will, she could have kept all of that for herself or my half-brother. He didn't. And by that time, my sister also hated her guts. So I talked to her and did the only thing I could think of. We took her to court to claim our inheritance. Sure, we got many looks of disgust and mutters of greediness, but in the end we won and I got my share of the money. My sister got hers and our half-brother got his, locked in a trust fund for when he turns 18. This meant that the house, dogs, and car had to be sold. The insurance money also got split, so us kids each got around $115,000 each in a trust fund for my half-brother. As for the stepmonster, she got around $1,000 and the monthly sum of around $3,700. Sounds like the stepmom forgot a critical rule for life. The toes you step on today may be connected to the ass you must kiss tomorrow. I want to thank all three OPs for posting their stories to the ProRevenge subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.